I cut my sister off after she slept with my boyfriend. Then my mom threatened to skip my wedding. When Ethan proposed, it honestly felt like my life finally clicked into place. We'd been together for about 4 years at that point, and he was everything I'd ever want in a partner: supportive, patient, genuinely kind, and somehow still funny even when things got stressful. After years of family bullshit and trust issues, being with him felt like a clean slate. So when we started planning our wedding, I was dead set on one thing. I wanted the day to be happy, calm, and drama-free. No chaos, no emotional landmines, just love and peace. Yeah, that didn't last long. I come from a complicated family. Not the loud, screaming at Thanksgiving kind of dysfunctional, but the quieter, more toxic version where everyone pretends nothing's wrong and shoves everything under the rug. My mom is the type who claims she hates conflict, but somehow manages to create it by forcing everyone to play happy family. She guilt trips. She cries. She manipulates, all while insisting she's just trying to keep the peace. And this entire mess traces back to my older sister, Lauren. Lauren and I used to be close when we were younger. That changed during my junior year of college. Back then, I was dating Kyle. He was my first serious boyfriend, the kind of guy you actually picture a future with. We were together for 3 years, and by the time I was getting ready to graduate, we were already talking about getting engaged. I was young, stupidly trusting, and completely in love, which is why it destroyed me when I found out Lauren had been fucking him behind my back. I still don't know how long it went on. All I know is that it wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a full-blown affair. But somehow, the betrayal itself wasn't even the worst part. When I confronted Lauren, she didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She literally shrugged and said something along the lines of, "Well, if he cheated on you, maybe you just weren't enough for him." That sentence burned itself into my brain. I cut her off that same day. Completely. No calls, no texts, nothing. Kyle and I obviously broke up too, but the damage Lauren did went way deeper than that. It fucked up my trust and my self-esteem for years. My mom, though, she saw it totally differently. To her, it was just a sister issue. Like we'd argued over clothes or something equally stupid. Men make mistakes, she kept saying. Sisters shouldn't hold grudges. I tried explaining how badly it hurt, how betrayed I felt, but she brushed it off like I was being dramatic. She told me I was overreacting and reminded me that family is forever. Eventually, I realized she was never going to take my side. So I stopped talking about it altogether and focused on building my own life, as far away from Lauren as possible. Fast forward to the present. Ethan and I were deep into wedding planning, and for the first time in a long while, I was genuinely excited. This wasn't just a wedding to me. It felt like a fresh chapter. We decided to keep things small, about 80 guests, only people who actually mattered to us. And from the very beginning, I knew one thing for sure. Lauren was not getting an invite. She wasn't part of my life anymore, and I wasn't about to let her cast a shadow over one of the happiest days I'd ever had. Of course, the second my mom found out we were engaged, she zeroed in on the one thing she knew would cause problems. "So, you're inviting Lauren, right?" she asked, like the answer was obvious. When I said no, she acted like I'd just told her I was canceling the entire wedding. She literally gasped and stared at me in disbelief. "You can't do that," she said. "She's your sister." I tried to explain myself calmly, but that didn't last long. She went straight into guilt trip mode. "How do you think this is going to look to the rest of the family? Do you really want to create even more drama by excluding her?" The irony almost made me laugh. I told her my decision wasn't changing, but she refused to drop it. For weeks after that, my phone basically became a stress machine. Calls, texts, voicemails. She even dragged a couple of aunts and cousins into it. I started getting those classic passive-aggressive messages. "It would mean so much to Grandma to see the whole family together. You don't want to regret this later in life." The breaking point came when my mom told me she might not come to the wedding if Lauren wasn't invited. She tried to frame it as her not wanting to take sides, but it was obvious what she was doing. She was trying to force my hand. And yeah, it hurt more than I expected. I love my mom, even though she could drive me absolutely insane, and the idea of her missing my wedding crushed me. But at the same time, I couldn't let her bully me into inviting someone who had already done enough damage to my life. Ethan was incredible through all of it. He told me it was my call, and that if my mom couldn't respect my boundaries, that was her issue, not mine. Eventually, just to get her off my back, I told my mom I'd think about it. What I didn't tell her was that instead of sending Lauren a wedding invitation, I sent her a letter. I laid everything out as clearly and honestly as I could. I told her how deeply her betrayal had hurt me and how it completely wrecked my ability to trust people for years. I explained that my wedding was about love, trust, and happiness, and that having her there would drag up memories I didn't want anywhere near that day. I made it very clear this wasn't about holding a grudge. It was about protecting my peace. I told her I didn't hate her, but I also didn't feel close to her, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise just to make the family look good. She lost it. Lauren sent me a stream of angry texts, calling me petty, immature, and selfish. She accused me of forcing the family to choose sides and said I was letting an old mistake destroy our relationship. And, surprise, surprise, my mom took her side. She called me in tears, saying Lauren was devastated and that I was tearing the family apart. At one point, she even said, "What kind of person doesn't invite their own sister to their wedding?" By then, I was emotionally exhausted. I told my mom I wasn't arguing about it anymore and that my decision was final. She kept pushing, but I stopped responding. I just didn't have it in me anymore. When the wedding day finally arrived, it was honestly perfect. Lauren wasn't there. My mom barely spoke to me for most of the day. And you know what? It still didn't matter. I was surrounded by people who loved me and actually respected me. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Ethan and I had an amazing day. And looking back, I wouldn't change a single thing. Now that the wedding is over, though, the fallout has started. Lauren's been posting vague, passive-aggressive stuff online about family betrayal and how some people can't move on. My mom keeps sending long texts about how disappointed she is in me and how she's never seen Lauren this upset. A few relatives have even reached out to tell me they think I made the wrong choice. Part of me feels guilty, but another part of me knows I did what I had to do to protect my mental health. I spent years rebuilding myself after what Lauren did, and I wasn't about to let her ruin one of the most important days of my life. Still, I can't help wondering, was I wrong? Should I have invited her just to avoid all this drama? Was it selfish to put myself first, even if it meant upsetting my family? Update 1. It's been a few days since I posted, and honestly, I didn't expect this kind of response. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read my story and share your thoughts. I've read every single comment. Some of you shared stories that were painfully similar to mine, and that alone made me feel way less isolated. To the people who think I was too harsh, I hear you too. This whole situation is messy, and I genuinely appreciate the different perspectives. Since the wedding, though, things haven't cooled off at all. If anything, they've gotten worse. I feel like I'm stuck in a constant tug of war, and my mom refuses to let go. 2 days ago, she sent me a long email. And when I say long, I mean emotionally exhausting. She went on about how heartbroken she still is, and how my decision has torn the family apart. The email was full of lines like, "I don't even recognize you anymore," and "This isn't the daughter I raised." She brought up Lauren again, of course. Apparently, I've hurt her more than I could ever understand, and she's supposedly devastated that I've shut her out of my life. The whole thing was a gross mix of guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation. She also mentioned that she hasn't been sleeping, that extended family members have been calling her nonstop, and that everyone is concerned about my behavior. Reading it felt like she was trying to turn me into some kind of villain who enjoys hurting people. That couldn't be further from the truth. After I finished reading, I just sat there staring at my laptop, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to unload years of pent-up anger and defend myself point by point. But I already knew how that would end. My mom has always been like this. Once she decides she's right, there's no changing her mind. So I kept my reply short and calm. I told her I was sorry she felt that way, but I stood by my decision. I explained, again, that this wasn't about punishment or spite. It was about boundaries and protecting my mental health. I told her I loved her, but I couldn't keep having the same argument over and over. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. My mom forwarded my email to Lauren. I know this because Lauren emailed me directly, and her message was even worse than my mom's. She called me bitter and immature and accused me of living in the past instead of moving on like an adult. She said I was obsessed with playing the victim and that I was destroying the family dynamic for no reason. Then she pulled the classic deflection move. According to her, Kyle was the real villain in all of this, not her. That part hit a nerve. Yes, Kyle was a lying, cheating asshole. But Lauren knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't manipulated. She wasn't clueless. She made a conscious choice to betray me, and she's never once taken responsibility for it. Even now, instead of offering a real apology, she's still trying to make me feel guilty for not letting her sweep everything under the rug. I didn't respond to her email. I just couldn't. I've spent years trying to heal, and engaging with her now felt like ripping open an old wound. But she's clearly not done. Yesterday, she posted another vague, dramatic message on Facebook about how people show their true colors when they think they've won. A few relatives jumped right in, commenting things like, "You're better off without toxic people," and "Some people just can't handle a strong woman." It's painfully obvious who they're talking about, and it's exhausting. Meanwhile, my mom keeps playing both sides. She still talks to me, but every conversation is tense. She casually slips Lauren into the discussion like it's nothing. I had coffee with Lauren yesterday. She's really struggling. I just wish you could see how much this is hurting her. It feels like constant pressure, like she's waiting for me to crack. I haven't. I've been polite but firm, reminding her that I'm not ready to reconcile and that she needs to respect my boundaries. Whether she actually will is another story. Ethan has been my anchor through all of this. He keeps reminding me to focus on our marriage and not let the family chaos poison what we're building together. He even suggested we take a short trip just to get away and breathe for a bit. Honestly, that sounds like exactly what I need. The reactions from extended family have been all over the place. Some people reached out privately to tell me they understand and support me. Others have clearly taken Lauren's side, either through passive-aggressive posts or snide comments in group chats. Everyone seems to have an opinion about something that isn't their business. What surprised me the most is how little I actually miss Lauren. You'd think a wedding or all this drama would make me want to reconnect, but it hasn't. If anything, this has just confirmed that cutting her out was the right call. She's shown me repeatedly that she's unwilling to take accountability or respect my feelings. I'm done forcing a relationship with someone who doesn't care about the damage they caused. That said, this has been draining. I'm tired of constantly defending myself. I'm tired of being painted as the bad guy for choosing my own happiness. And I'm tired of my mom treating Lauren's feelings like they matter more than mine. I don't want to cut my mom off completely, but if she keeps pushing, I might not have a choice. So this is where things stand. I'm holding my ground, but the backlash has been heavier than I expected. I'm trying to focus on the positives, my marriage, my friends, and the life Ethan and I are building, but the family drama still hangs over everything like a dark cloud. Update 2. Things have been absolute chaos since my last update. I honestly thought that after a few days, everything would start to cool down. Instead, it somehow managed to spiral even harder. At this point, I feel like I'm trapped inside a soap opera I never agreed to be part of. I'm just trying to keep my sanity while everything around me keeps blowing up. And of course, it started with Lauren. A few days ago, a package showed up at my door. I wasn't expecting anything, so when I saw Lauren's name on the return label, my stomach dropped. I stood there staring at it for a solid minute, debating whether I should even open it. Every instinct told me not to, but curiosity won. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small photo album. The letter was long, multiple pages, and surprisingly, it wasn't angry. Instead, it was this uncomfortable mix of apology and excuse-making. She started by saying she was sorry for how things turned out between us, and that she regretted how much pain she'd caused me. Then came the pivot. She started explaining her side, saying she was in a really dark place at the time of the affair and didn't fully understand the consequences of what she was doing. She wrote about how she always felt like she lived in my shadow growing up, and how Kyle gave her the attention and validation she craved. Reading it felt gross. It was like she was trying to get me to feel sorry for her instead of actually taking responsibility. The letter ended with her saying she hoped we could put the past behind us and start fresh. The photo album somehow made it worse. It was filled with pictures of us as kids, birthdays, holidays, random family moments. Some of them made me smile for half a second. Most of them just made my chest ache. It felt like she was trying to weaponize nostalgia. Like if she reminded me hard enough of who we used to be, I'd forget who she chose to be. I couldn't tell if the package was meant as an olive branch or just another manipulation tactic, but either way, it left me feeling unsettled. I showed everything to Ethan, and his reaction was cautious. He reminded me that acknowledging her feelings doesn't mean I owe her forgiveness, especially if I'm not ready. He suggested I take time before responding, if I even responded at all. So for now, the letter and album are sitting in a drawer. I haven't touched them since. While I was still processing that mess, my mom decided to crank things up to an entirely new level. She organized a family intervention. I wish I were exaggerating. She sent out a group text to me, Lauren, and several relatives, saying she wanted us all to meet at her house and talk things out like adults. Just reading the message made my anxiety spike. Sitting in a room with Lauren and a group of people who'd already chosen sides felt like walking straight into a trap. I told my mom I wouldn't be attending. She completely lost it. She called me immediately, crying and begging me to reconsider. She kept repeating, "We're a family, and families don't turn their backs on each other." I tried again to explain that I wasn't ready for something like that, and that forcing it would only make things worse. She refused to listen. She told me she was doing this for my own good, and that I needed to stop being so stubborn. I didn't go. Instead, I spent the afternoon with Ethan, trying to distract myself and pretend the intervention wasn't happening. Unfortunately, avoiding it didn't spare me from the fallout. Afterward, my mom called and told me how disappointed she was. She said everyone else showed up, including Lauren, and that my absence proved I was the one keeping the family divided. She accused me of being selfish and unwilling to move on, then hung up before I could even respond. That wasn't the end of it. Relatives who attended started messaging me. One cousin texted, "You should have been there, it was really healing for Lauren." And Aunt sent a long message about how cruel I was for refusing to let Lauren apologize in person. Apparently, Lauren cried during the meeting and talked about how much she missed me and wanted to fix things. Now half the family is acting like she's the victim and I'm some kind of monster for not letting her back into my life. It's infuriating. No one seems to care how I feel or what I went through. They're so obsessed with this fantasy of family unity that they're willing to erase everything that happened just to keep the peace. Standing up for myself has officially made me the villain. And honestly, I feel like I'm losing my relationship with my mom entirely. She's gone from disappointed to cold and distant. Our conversations are short, clipped, and passive-aggressive. She even skipped a lunch date we had planned, claiming she wasn't feeling well, but I know exactly why she didn't show. It hurts more than I want to admit. Still, I keep reminding myself that her behavior says more about her than it does about me. The only real bright spot in all of this has been my support system. Ethan has been incredible, and a few close friends have shown up in ways I didn't expect. One of my best friends came over with wine and snacks, and we spent hours just talking. She reminded me that I'm not crazy for setting boundaries and that protecting my mental health isn't selfish. Even so, the guilt hasn't completely gone away. Part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid, if maybe I should try one last time for my mom's sake. But then I think about how hard I've worked to heal and how letting Lauren back in my life without real accountability would undo all of that. And honestly, I don't think she's capable of giving a genuine apology. So here I am, stuck in a storm I never asked for. I'm holding my ground, but the pressure is relentless. My mom is distant, Lauren is playing the victim, and parts of my family are siding with her. I keep asking myself if I'm doing the right thing. Deep down, I know I am, but that doesn't make it any less exhausting. Now I'm wondering what comes next. Should I write Lauren back, or would that just reopen the door to more manipulation? Is there any way to salvage my relationship with my mom without sacrificing my boundaries? I'm trying so hard to focus on my life with Ethan, but the weight of this family drama is hard to ignore. Having a place to put all of this into words and get feedback has helped more than I can explain. Update 3. It's been about a week since everything finally reached its breaking point, and for the first time in a while, I feel like I can actually breathe again. A lot has happened in a very short span of time, and even though I'm not proud of how chaotic things became, I'm relieved that it's mostly behind me now. This will likely be my last update because I made a decision I know I won't be walking back. I've chosen my peace, and I'm done apologizing for it. After the so-called family intervention and the letter from Lauren, I intentionally pulled back. I buried myself in work, spent as much time as I could with Ethan, and kept my phone on silent more often than not. Of course, ignoring the situation didn't magically make it disappear. My mom continued calling and texting, urging me to at least hear Lauren out. At one point, she even suggested a smaller conversation, just the three of us, claiming she worried the larger intervention had been too overwhelming for me. I said no again, calmly but firmly, and genuinely believed that would finally be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. Last weekend, Ethan and I hosted a small dinner with a handful of close friends. It was meant to be a relaxed, drama-free evening. Good food, easy conversations, and a chance to unwind. Everything was going perfectly until my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. I usually never check my phone during dinners, but something told me to look. I wish I hadn't been right. Lauren had posted again, and this one was the most pointed yet. She wrote something along the lines of how sad it is when people refuse to move on and keep clinging to old grudges, and how sometimes you have to wonder whether they're just jealous or still stuck on what they lost. My stomach dropped instantly. There was no ambiguity this time. She was talking about me. The implication that I was somehow still hung up on Kyle made my blood boil. For the record, Kyle is the last person on earth I'd ever want anything to do with again. Lauren trying to rewrite the narrative and paint me as jealous or bitter would have been laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. What pushed me over the edge was the fact that she was now airing everything publicly, dragging our personal history into the spotlight for sympathy. I showed the post to Ethan, and without hesitation, he suggested I block her and move on. He was right, but something inside me snapped. I was exhausted from Lauren controlling the narrative, from my mom constantly enabling her, and from being portrayed as the villain for simply protecting myself. For the first time in years, I decided I wasn't going to stay silent. The next day, I called my mom and told her I'd meet with her and Lauren, not to reconcile, but to finally say what needed to be said. She sounded thrilled, clearly assuming this was my attempt to mend things, and quickly arranged the meeting at her house. I didn't correct her assumption. I wasn't there to fix anything. I was there to close the door. When I arrived, the tension was unmistakable. My mom greeted me with a mix of forced cheerfulness and nervous anticipation, clearly hoping she could mediate her way to a happy ending. Lauren, meanwhile, looked confident, almost smug, like she believed she already had the upper hand. She didn't even wait for me to sit down before launching into a speech about how much she missed me and how family was too important to let one mistake destroy everything. I let her talk, silently, until she finally stopped and looked at me, clearly expecting agreement or an apology. Instead, I calmly asked her about the Facebook post. She didn't deny it for a second. She brushed it off as a general comment and suggested that if I felt attacked, maybe it was because it struck a nerve. She then accused me of being stuck in the past and implied that my anger wasn't really about her betrayal, but about my inability to let go of Kyle. That's when I finally lost my patience. I told her plainly that this had nothing to do with Kyle and everything to do with her complete refusal to take responsibility. I reminded her that she knowingly chose to sleep with my boyfriend, fully aware of how deeply it would hurt me, and that she had never once offered a genuine apology. Instead, she'd spent years positioning herself as the victim and using our family to pressure me into forgiveness. I told her I had no interest in reconciling with someone who couldn't even admit they were wrong, let alone take real steps to make amends. When Lauren tried to interrupt, I shut it down. I then turned to my mom and told her I was done with the guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation. I said I loved her, but her refusal to respect my boundaries had pushed me to my limit. I made it clear that I wasn't cutting her off completely, but I needed space, and that I would no longer participate in family interventions or forced reconciliation attempts. If she wanted a relationship with me, she would have to accept that Lauren was not part of my life. That's when Lauren started crying, big, dramatic tears clearly meant to make me feel guilty. She kept repeating things like how hard she tried and how she didn't understand why I hated her so much. None of it moved me. It felt rehearsed, performative, and manipulative. When she realized I wasn't backing down, her tone shifted. She became defensive, accusing me of being cold and incapable of forgiveness. She even tossed out a snide remark about how nice it must be to feel so morally superior all the time. That's when I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it finally hit me how pointless the argument was. I stood up, told them both I was done, and walked out without looking back. Driving home, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, stronger than anything I'd felt in years. For so long, I carried the weight of this situation, constantly questioning myself, wondering if I was doing the wrong thing or if I somehow owed Lauren or my mom more than I'd already given. In that moment, I knew I didn't. I had explained myself. I had set boundaries. I tried to move forward in a way that protected my mental health. They just weren't willing to meet me where I was, and that wasn't my responsibility. Not anymore. Since then, I've blocked Lauren on every platform and told my mom that I'd be stepping back from family events for the foreseeable future. I don't know whether she'll respect that boundary, but I'm prepared to enforce it if she doesn't. Ethan has been my anchor through all of this. He's constantly reminded me that I'm allowed to protect my peace and that walking away from toxic dynamics doesn't make me a bad person. The strangest part is that I don't even feel angry anymore. I just feel relieved. For the first time in years, I feel free to focus on my own life without the constant shadow of family drama looming over me. I have an incredible husband, a circle of friends who genuinely support me, and a future that feels open and hopeful. Letting go of Lauren and of the part of my family that refuses to respect me feels like finally setting down a burden I carried for far too long. To everyone who followed this journey and took the time to share advice or encouragement, thank you. Truly, your words helped me see things more clearly and gave me the confidence to stand up for myself when I needed it most. I don't know what the future holds when it comes to my family, and I'm no longer trying to predict it. For now, I'm at peace with the choices I've made, and that peace means everything to me. Am I sad that it ended this way? A little. But more than anything, I'm relieved to be done with the chaos. Life is too short to stay tied to people who bring you pain, no matter how loudly they insist they love you. If there's one lesson I'm taking away from all of this, it's that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Here's to moving forward.